Welcome back to Yinzer 3D. This is Chris, and today we are going to be replacing the filament sensor in a P1S. So let me show you what ended up happening. This is the combined extruder and hot end assembly from my Bamboo Lab P1S printer. So this is the printer, this is the hot end. It goes up in here like so. But what ended up happening was a couple days ago, I did something that is pretty stupid. This video is part of the I Am an Idiot series. And as you can see right here, while I was doing some overnight repairs, I damaged the ribbon cable on the filament sensor. This caused an endless stream of errors where the filament cutter could not be read by the printer because the filament sensor, the magnet that reads the filament cutter, is right here, part of the sensor, which is broken. So today, I'm going to walk you through how to replace that sensor and how to move forward with this. Now, keep in mind, this is the first time I've ever even done this repair, and it's also an unboxing of the spare parts themselves. So we're going to go through this and step by step and see how it goes. So let me just set the all right, can you see? All right, and get a little bit better light on the situation. There we go. So the tools we'll most likely just need for this are going to be two Allen wrenches for the most part, a 2mm and a 1.5mm. One of the things I like with the Bamboo is that everything is just these. So far, all of the screws that I've run into have only been these two sizes. It's not like my Ender 3 Pro, which has like 7 different sizes of screws and then a bunch of wrenches and other things. But, all right, so this is the extruder filament sensor. Ordered this off of the Bamboo website Friday morning. Came here in a couple days. Silicone glue for reinforcing connections, and the sensor itself in an anti-static bag. As you can see, it has a fully intact ribbon cable, which is what we need. Now, I'm going to remove the damaged cable. And this is the 1.5mm. Our magnetic bowl so that we don't lose our screws again. There's something rather relaxing about doing repairs. You have to focus on what you're doing. You can't let other things get in the way. Before I go too far with that, let's get this out of the bag so that we can see what we have and what we're looking at. All right, so we have a filament sensor. This will connect into the Bowden tube. This goes into the bottom, and these two screws look like they're the main housing that keeps that in place. And then along with this little piece of tape, yeah. So that takes that out there. Put that off to the side. You push it in until you feel a little pop. So we'll hold that off to the side, and then let's put these screws back in before we lose these and forget about these. Now, I mentioned in an earlier video, a little trick that if you can't hold these tiny little screws very well, tweezers. And then you just want to start them, and then once you get a better grip on things, and sometimes you get lucky because a little bit of leftover magnetism from the bowl will hold on to the screws. It's not going to really cause any, shouldn't cause any damage to any of the electrical components. So it's kind of safe for the most part. But at the same time, you don't want to go crazy and over magnetize your tools or your screws when you're doing a repair. That little bit of convenience could end up causing damage. Now, I'm going to reuse this tape because I don't have any. And then we're going to pop this in on the corner here, and voila! One reassembled hot end. Now we're going to go and turn this back on. I'm going to reassemble the extruder end. I'm going to pause this and I'll walk you through that next process too. I'm going to walk you through how to reinstall a hot end. This is how we're going to put a bamboo hot end and extruder reattached back into the housing. The tools you're going to need for this are you're going to need 2 Allen wrenches. I use T-handle ones, a 1.5 millimeter and a 2 millimeter. Just ignore the fact that I held up the 2 for the 1.5 and the 1.5 for the 2. So you need 2 of those. Some light so you can see what you're doing. And I prefer to use a magnetic bowl on the plate so that when I drop screws, they don't go flying all over the place. So the first thing I'm going to do here is we're going to remove the top glass and put this to the side. The reason we're doing that is that this makes it a lot easier to get to these components. The reason why it's so much easier is, well, the main reason why it's easy, why we always want to remove the glass, is that if you notice with this printer, it's a Core XY printer. That means everything is, the printer bed moves up and down, but it just basically just moves down. A little bit of up, but not too much. Everything else is just the Y and the X and the Y motions. Or 90% of your motion and movement comes in per layer. It's not like an Ender 3 or a Prusa where it's a bed slinger and it's just throwing it back and forth, throwing the bed back and forth. So what we have to do, thing is that if you notice, if I get right to the level of the extruder, it is very difficult to get to these screws. So these screws are going to be a pain in the butt to get to from there. So we remove the top so that we can actually get to this. We're going to put the cover there, and if you give me a moment, I'm going to find a way to prop this up so we can actually see. All right, so now that I got this shot set up, you're going to see that there are 4 connectors down here that we have to deal with. Now, before you do any work on the electronics, make sure that everything is unplugged and powered off. I unplugged the printer just to be on the safe side. This is now completely unplugged. It's been turned off, but now there's definitely unplugged. And there are 4 connectors we have to go through. The first is this one for the, get the focus. So the first connector is going to be this double ribbon cable here that goes for the filament sensor. Our next 2 connectors are going to be for the hot end. One is for the thermistor. I believe this one is for the thermistor, and this one is the hot end. This one's the thermistor. This one's the hot end sensor. I think so. And then the front end housing cooling fan. I'm going to go through these step by step and show you how I'm connecting all of them as we go. one thing to keep in mind is that because we're doing this at such an awkward angle, that this is going to be things that get a little awkward. Now, when I said earlier to take the glass off, here's why. If you're trying to come in through underneath, you're going to be hunched over and bent over the whole time, and it's just going to be a really awkward mess to get in through. So instead, what you do, after I get this first screw in, is you take your screws, you come up from above, and that makes it oh so much easier. Now, these first 3 screws hold the housing in place. They are 2mm screws. There's 2 on the left, 1 on the right. The one on the right goes above the spring, the tension spring, and then 1 goes above the... One screw goes above the extrusion gear and 1 goes below. This is not always an easy easy thing, and the most difficult part is trying to make sure these tiny little screws don't disappear into the ether. Yes, I know the printer is very dirty. That's going to be one of my next things that I fix. So now that we have that in place, the next thing we do is that we connect all of the connections for these 2. Now, the thicker, bigger of the 2 connectors from the hot end assembly, that goes on the bottom. There's this little cable connection that we have to get through here. Once we get that through, then we can squeeze that on and then push this into place. Now, you have to be gentle with these connectors. You can't put too much force on them. They could get damaged. But at the same time, if they're not in there securely enough, you're going to throw every error in the book on this thing. So before we connect the last connector, I'm going to do is if we're now going to go and reconnect the cutter. Filament cutter slides into place here, and this is where the 1.5mm Allen wrench comes into place. We have to push this into place. Try not to drop your tools too often. It's not the end of the world if you do, but just try not to. And then pop that into place, and we're good to go with that. Next thing, we'll connect this Bowden tube, get that back in place, and then get the last connector. This is the connector that holds the front housing. Check to make sure everything is in here tight, but not crunchy. Tight is good, crunchy bad. Crunchy means a cross connector or something smashed. That means more spare parts. And that is how we connect that in place. Then we take our glass, we put this back in place, and then we're good to go. Next thing is we're gonna power this up, test it, load up the AMS, and go through and test all the processes. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna do a test with just the bamboo filaments. I'm not gonna go crazy with other ones, but right now I'm just doing a test with some basic PLA. First filament is just gonna be this green standard issue bamboo PLA basic. You know, actually now that I think about it, then I will test other PLAs after that, and I don't need this is PETG, no, that's PLA. So once I get some test work, once I know that it can actually start up, we will then be good to go. Actually, I'm just going to load up 4 filaments here. All right, so I will now have to go onto the computer here in a moment to set the remaining filaments, but we have not gotten any errors. And I'm going to do a test print with these filaments here in just a moment. So let me just get into the slicer. Okay, I am going to send just a quick little print job here for some swatches. Just a little example from each one of the four AMSs. My chair makes way too much noise. Basically, I'm going to be making this, just a few samples from this. It's a 30-minute print. It's not as accurate or as cool as a benchy, but it works for a handful of minutes. I just want to show that something prints. So this is a 30-minute print. This is a good sign so far. I have not gotten any errors yet. The AMS has recognized all of the different filaments. And the printing is generating up to its full speed, is going up to full power. The bed is heating. I have not received any errors saying that the heartbeat or heart rate sensor has failed or that the cutter is stuck or anything else like that. So this is a good sign. This is a very good sign. As you can see, the printer is back up and running. It is pulling filament from number 4. So looks like we had a successful repair. Yay! All right, for more how-to tips, especially on the I'm an Idiot series, click, you know the drill, share, like, subscribe, dance, do all that happy stuff that makes it so that I can share these videos out and get it to where when people have the same problem, they are not having to go diving through some weird files to find it. So hope you guys have a good one. Catch you later. Bye.